Hello and welcome to Press Party. It's time to talk about the media. I'm your host, Katie Eastman. Marty Walsh is Boston's new mayor-elect. We'll talk about the media's role in getting him there and if Walsh administration will be friendly to the press. If you tuned into those Sunday morning talk shows, you probably saw some familiar faces, the Bay State politicians on healthcare. And a major network is paying for interviews and video and being accused of checkbook journalism. Dollar bills in exchange for ratings, where do we draw the line? Don't miss our media fail of the week. A journalist tweets a congressman has died before it happens. Now let's meet our panel. For the first time, we have former U.S. Senate candidate Gabriel Gomez on the show. And as always, Jacqueline Cashman, host of Boston Herald Radio's Morning Meeting and former TV anchor. And back this week, City Councilor Tito Jackson. And then there was one. Marty Walsh will be Boston's new mayor in January, and the local journalists will have to get used to someone else other than Menino. But as Walsh proved during the race, he's already learned how to give a storyline to reporters. And the new mayor of Boston is Marty Walsh, a boy from Dorchester who battled cancer and overcame his alcohol addiction. What kind of reporter doesn't love that story?
He's a people person.
Mass Live's Garrett Quinn said part of Marty Walsh's victory came from his campaign's ability to drive the narrative of the news.
You've made Boston a place where dreams come through.
Walsh made his first media rounds as the mayor-elect on Wednesday, and the reality of constant questioning for the next 4 years set in.
I haven't read it yet, and I probably shouldn't say this to a bunch of press people.
So what kind of transparency can we expect from a Walsh administration? Reporting for Press Party, I'm Katie Eastman. All right, so this is the Herald from Thursday. It's all about Marty, and we even call it the special honeymoon edition. So we're admitting that we are still in the honeymoon phase as reporters. Jacqueline, you talked to him this morning.
I did, and I tried to break a little news, get under his skin. I asked him, holidays are coming up. Is it going to be a holiday tree or a Christmas tree? Because that always gets people going. He's such a smart guy when it comes to the media because he doesn't want to be on the cover of the Herald for something like that. So his response was, it's Menino's last year, so whatever Menino wants it to be, I will support that. So
good answer.
He's always been very good with the media. This is not his first go-around, so I don't expect many fumbles from the beginning with a non-mumbles mayor.
Right. Now, Tito, you endorsed him right after the preliminary. Do you think that endorsements from you and former candidates like Charlotte Goler-Ritchie and John Barrows really helped him keep a positive light in the media?
I think it helped him keep a positive light in the media. I also think it worked. Every elected official of color who endorsed Marty Walsh. Every woman elected in the city of Boston who endorsed Marty Walsh. He wiped the table clean when it came to that. He's an affable, likable guy. He had a great story. And I think in terms of the candidate aspect of it, was a superior candidate. And the other thing is he cares about people, and that comes across through the media. For me, I also would note he's the same guy when the camera's off as when the camera's on.
That's so sweet.
And I do tease him.
Tito, big supporter of Marty Walsh. And you said he has a good storyline. And that's something I wanted to ask you, Gabriel, because when you were running for Senate, your storyline, you're a former Navy SEAL, and that was constantly brought up in the media. Do you think that helped you in your campaign?
Oh, I think it helped people get to know me because that was kind of the narrative that was out there in the media, and people kind of resonated with that because obviously, the SEALs have done a great job over the last 12 years out there and done some great things. But back to the mayor race, we had 12 great people run for mayor. So, and then they were down to 2, and it was 2 very, very qualified people. And in the end, Boston won. And who's ever going to take over is going to take over a better city. Mayor Menino's done a phenomenal job for the next 20 years. And I think the best person won in this election, and I look forward to Marty Walsh being mayor.
But do you think he also looks forward to probably working with that person because he'll be running for something in the near future?
Yeah, who knows what that, any hints on what that will be? Just trying to get that out there. Nothing at all. But do you think the storyline helped him? He battled cancer as a child. He was a recovering alcoholic. He made it a point to make that come across in every report.
I think absolutely. I mean, people can resonate with like a real person. And a lot of different people can resonate with different parts of Marty's life. And he's overcome a lot of challenges, but he's also accomplished a lot of things. And when you meet him, and I've gotten to know Marty during my campaign and during his campaign, and he's just a very genuine person. He's a very likable person. And I think that shows, and voters like that.
And the storyline around obstacles is one that we all face. Very, very few of us have linear stories in terms of, it took me 5 years and some change to graduate college. I was adopted, and those are things that I brought up, when I ran. And so I think it's really important for people not only to understand your policy, but this is just as much about people as it is policy. And if I can see into you and what you're about, that helps me to make that connection. I think he actually, and now mind you, John Conley actually worked at Fenway Park for 6 years. I don't know, I just found that out today. That should have been
that's a good storyline that I think the press would have liked to pick up on.
I agree. The one thing I want to say, though, is that narratives are very important, and obstacles now are very different in terms of talking about drug and alcohol abuse. Even Jack Kelly, a guy that was running for city council, one of his whole flyers was about how he used to be addicted to OxyContin. 20 years ago, you couldn't talk about those skeletons in the closet. You were best to keep the door shut if you could. Now it's important to talk about your checkered past, and it makes you actually more likable, and Marty did that really well.
And it also makes it so Jacqueline doesn't get you. So when it comes down to it,
you gotta bring it up, tell her.
And we saw this with President Obama. I did coke. I did some bad things in the past. So I think it's critical also from a strategic perspective to air out those things early and use them as part of your...
the media will find it later on and catch.
Jacqueline will.
Right.
Well, in the end, they're going to find out. So it's like Tito said, you got to come out and you might as well get ahead of it so you can actually drive the story.
Yeah, and that was one thing I just spoke about in my package. Garrett Quinn's Mass Lives said that was something that helped Marty win this race because he drove the narrative, whereas John Connolly was acting in a reactionary way after the news.
I think he was also actually afraid to talk about his real narrative, which is the fact that he went to the most exclusive, most amazing school in the world. And he was afraid to admit that he was a Harvard guy. I think that if he said, hey, listen, I was lucky enough to go to the best school in the world because I busted my tail in high school, I busted my tail in college, and used the narrative to his credit. But I think he was so afraid to acknowledge that he went to the H school over the river that I think that hurt him. Don't run away from who you are. Own it.
Hey, I would second that. I've been fortunate to have a lot of opportunities. I went to that same college for business school, but I've earned everything, and you shouldn't be ashamed if you've had a lot of success. And unfortunately, sometimes the media on the other side tries to denigrate that success. But in the end, you should confront that success and be very, very proud of it because everybody wants to have the same thing that you've done.
And that means I'm going to be calling him for a campaign donation. But on top of that, the other thing is the issue of privilege came up a lot. And Yvonne Abraham wrote a whole article on the issue of privilege. Privilege is not about how you're doing. It's actually about what your parents gave you. And a better way to deal with that would have been to say, I was really, really blessed. My parents gave me the best of the best of the best. My objective is to make sure that everybody gets that same opportunity rather than getting your back up about things that you couldn't control.
Right.
So I think there's a lot to be said about that, and I am privileged to have the parents that I have.
So part of the reason Marty Walsh won this campaign was because he owned his narrative. Thanks everyone on our panel. Now it's time for the viewers' turn. Tell us what you think about the Boston mayor's race on the Press Party comment section, and stay right here on BostonHerald.com for our next segment. Thanks so much.